All right. All right. Let's do it again. Let's do it again, y'all. I'm gonna do it again tonight, y'all. All right. Coach Smith live. Happy to be with you. I hope y'all are excited to be with Coach Smith. Let's do it again. Love that old school. Old school. Let's do it again. Thank you for joining Coach Smith. I'm live on Instagram, on IG, Coach Smith 27, live on YouTube, Love the Game 24_7, and I'm live on Facebook. And for those who are my faithful followers and subscribers, uh, those who joined the show, thank you for doing it again with Coach Smith. And glad to be with you all this evening. And we got some things. I'm starting this new series on college recruiting 101, college sports recruiting 101, I should say. College sports recruiting 101. And I'll be bringing some topics. I'll be doing some lives on that topic, as well as dropping some small videos for a few minutes where they'll be recorded, but just giving some tips for youth, male and female athletes, especially at the high school level, early high school level, and late junior high school as you're getting ready to come in from junior high to high school. So I'll be doing that series, several episodes, and I probably will include some interviews in there where I can as well. So uh, look forward to you all joining me. I've been very busy because I've been doing some refereeing with football. I'm going to kind of just talk about that experience that just I have my last JV football game tomorrow night here locally um, in North Carolina, where I'm located now. So this would be my last football game. But of course, we're getting ready to end the regular season for high school and get into the playoffs. But since I'm a newbie, a rookie at refereeing, of course, I wouldn't get chosen for, playoff games and state championship. That goes to those guys who've been working hard for years in their craft at refereeing high school football and middle school and JV football. But yeah, for the varsity, you definitely want to get those guys who've been putting in their time and years of experience in their craft, and it's well deserved for all those uh, men and women who are refereeing the varsity high school playoffs and state championships as we continue to move forward in that, wherever you are, whether you're here in the state of North Carolina, Florida, where I hail from originally, or wherever you may be. Um, uh, hey, let's do our best to get the calls right and all those great things. Um, but yeah, it's been a pretty interesting year with being a referee and having that experience. And so I'm just excited to share a little bit about how I felt my first um, time refereeing and how it correlates with our young athletes, right? Um, and what I've observed this season, and trying to give some thoughts and some advice, just from and, from being a person who's been around sports all my life, you know, since the age of 7, that I could, since I've been playing at the age of 7 until now, I've been around sports, right? So um, I hope um, my opinions and advice are well received, and that you use it to help you as a parent and a young athlete with your recruiting process. That's That's what this podcast is all about, and just giving out great advice, as well as um, thoughts and opinions, and also questions. So if anybody have questions and you're on IG or Facebook, feel free to put your comments or questions in there, and I try to do my best to answer them, as well as on Instagram, on IG. Um, and so, but whether you're watching this Love the Game 24/7 podcast live or the recording later, be sure to hit that subscribe button, um, on my YouTube channel, uh, over there in the left corner, right, right there. I think I got my finger there. So yeah, be sure you hit that subscribe button, and give Coach Smith, right, and Love the Game 24/7 some love. Share it with as many people as possible to help them and their young athlete, or somebody whether it's your nephew, your niece, right, your grandchildren, that are playing sports, whatever sport it may be. Recruiting 101 is all the same, right? I've always said it on my podcast, right? That recruiting is recruiting, no matter if you're male or female or what sport you're playing, right? It all goes the same, right? And I want to use this platform to inform you parents and your young athletes on the steps and different things like that. So the next podcast, depending on what my refereeing schedule is for basketball, because I'll be doing basketball. I'll be getting started, kicking that off, doing some practicing with some of the local teams in the area this weekend, and next week and on into the month until we get ready to start the regular season. We're doing our training, trying to hone our skills, and get back to, because there's a lot of guys who referee football that transition over to basketball, um, like I'm learning myself this year, and got a lot of great brothers and some sisters that are refereeing that have been huge resources. Um, give out a shout out to Mr. Johnny Fort, who goes to my church, who is a ACC ref that lives here locally in the area. Um, he is uh, one of my mentors in refereeing, that is a very solid guy. And give a shout out to Sugar Bear, my Pop Warner brother, who normally he's my white hat. Uh, he's been a big help as well in coaching me up, as well as several others, many others that I've watched, and had the opportunity to view them at work when I'm not refereeing. Um, and whether it be at a Pop Warner game or a local high school game, I've always, when I'm not refereeing, I try to get to some games and watch some of the guys that I've met in this new uh, family that I've become a part of as a referee, and it's awesome. And one thing for sure, there are 3 teams on a playing field, right? The home and away team and the referees, right? Those are 3 teams, and we do our best to make sure we get the calls right. But because we're human, there are going to be some mistakes made, right? So let's get into this, about what I want to discuss tonight, about my experience in ending, my first year as a referee in football, and also getting ready to get started with basketball. But it's going to come from, just some things that I observed. So, tonight's podcast, is talking about today's um, youth sports atmosphere, right? And how it can affect, you know, the needs of current college athletes and recruiting for you young athletes, right? So, um, I mean, it's amazing, um, being able to see things at different vantage points. Um, one thing I definitely appreciate is, before I try to make some sort of judgment call or anything like that, it's always good to just put yourself in a position to where you can really, sit back and observe and watch whether I'm a coach, right? Whether from a coaching standpoint, moving as as I was a player at one time, so there's some things, when you're a player, you're not aware of some things when you're playing, when it comes to things off the field or off the court or off the track, right? There's a lot of things that happen that you're not aware of, and a lot of times, and sometimes you only become privy to it maybe after the fact, after the game is over, after you ran your race, right, or after you been on the uh, hey, what's up, Johnny? Appreciate you joining me, brother. Uh, and JP3 Powell, appreciate y'all brothers joining me. Um, Johnny, hope you having a great season, man, with the Commanders. I appreciate you joining me, brother, on IG. Um, Johnny Newton had the pleasure of knowing the Newton family, man. Awesome. And I've been watching you and checking you out as often as I can. So I appreciate you taking some time to pop in here on my IG and check out what Coach Smith is doing with Love the Game 24/7. And make sure you shout out to all those cats back home to jump on Coach Smith YouTube or IG to help them with their recruiting. Because you know how we put it down at CCC. So I appreciate it. But like I said, my experience with refereeing. Today I was just going to talk about today's youth sports atmosphere and how it can affect the needs of current college athletes and the recruiting. Right. And I was recently speaking with, I'm not going to say a name or anything like that or reveal a source, but just to give you an idea of, a lot of times I've been a college administrator for over 20 something years, right, in financial aid. And so I deal with athletes and all that. And so, I've worked at state universities, community colleges, all that. And I always talk to the college coaches wherever I've worked. And so recently been at conferences, whether it's state conferences or national conferences, for financial aid, and it always we have sessions that deal with sports and scholarships and the requirements for our student athletes at our universities that we represent. And I was recently speaking with an athletic director not too long ago about um, they're the athletic director over athletic student life and academics resources, and they shared something with me that stuck in my head, um, and how it can potentially relate to the youth sports atmosphere today, from what I've been able to just gather. Like I said, I don't have any scientific proof or studies or anything like that. I'm only talking from my experience, because I remember seeing some of this stuff when my boys were playing youth sports. And I think it's even elevated since then, how some parents and even some coaches at the youth sports level and even the high school level, but more in the youth sports area. But they shared something with me that stuck in my head. Like I said, how it could potentially the relate to youth sports atmosphere today, right? And the statement that they made was how needy their student athlete population can be at their university. It's like being another parent, uh, to the athletes, male or female, doesn't matter. They weren't distinguishing between gender or anything that of that nature. They were just saying overall, they can, they're like, you're like another parent. And I know working at a university and helping and working with coaches and even working with the athletes, I know that to be true. You're almost like a surrogate, another parent. And they also shared that they get that similar feedback from their colleagues at other universities and college, that they feel sometimes that their college athletes are very needy. Um, and and um, and so that statement, and then having this experience as a referee for the first time, and dealing with youth sports and being able, because I did youth sports refereeing and I did JV high school, and there's a difference a lot of times. Um, there's a difference that I've seen or noticed, right? From parents and even coaches sometimes, right? Sometimes the coaches can be on a similar level when it comes to whether they feel like they didn't get a call, you know, things of that nature, or people, trying to tell you what they see from the stands and how, you know, bad a call that we made as a referee. Um, and it's amazing, how someone that's not on the field can tell us as a referee whether we made a bad call or not. You may be able to see some things, no doubt, right? But there are a lot of things you don't see. Okay. And then when you're dealing with a certain age group with youth sports, there's some things we're not going to waste our time calling because why? At such a young age of kids, right there, you're trying to help them develop. There are kids out there at the 6U and 8U level out there looking at the sky and the plane flying over or whatever. They're easily distracted, or you get coaches complaining about, oh, the kids holding on every play. Well, in 6U and 8U, more than likely you're going to have kids holding on every play. So if we threw a flag on every play, it will prolong the game because we got to get through games because we're first of all, when you're doing youth sports, you're on a schedule. Sometimes you don't always get to stay on that schedule, and that's understandable. But when you're dealing with kids where the coaches are on the field, still trying to help the kids stay focused at the 6U and 8U level, you're going to have some calls that you're not going to throw a flag on because we're out there also as a ref when we're dealing with 6U and 8U to help the coaches help develop the kids. So sometimes when the kid does do certain things, we may just give them a warning or correction and not throw a flag, right? It's not that serious yet, or it shouldn't be that serious at 6U and 8U because why? They're 6 and they're 8 years old, so they're going to do some things where they shouldn't necessarily do. And if it doesn't affect the play, and a kid did a good block, and then now they're standing around talking to each other, or they get to pushing, or I've seen where kids run right by somebody they should have tackled because they want to go at it. They're mad or whatever because they got blocked or pushed down, and they want to make sure they go back and push the kid down. So you have all this going on at the real young age, but you get coaches that complain like crazy about calls, and it's like, coach, you're out here on the field, and there's a reason why you're out here on the field, right? We want to help develop the kids. We don't want to throw flags on every play for a 6U and 8U game, right? Now, when you get to a 10U, some 8U, it depends because there's some 8U teams that are pretty well disciplined, especially if they're older, right? They're about to go to 10U age, and so you do have some older 8U teams where they've been together and they are pretty well disciplined and well coached. I've seen that, and you're like, okay, but definitely at the 10U level because we go by high school rules at the 10U level, but we don't for 6U and 8U. But at the 10U level, we go by high school rules. Because why? Because the 10U kids, why, are more focused, more disciplined, right? And so, but when that athletic director shared that with me, that state with me about how the kids seem needed, I'm like, yeah, I can kind of agree with that as somebody who is a college administrator and had many conversations with athletes at the college and university level. And I've worked pretty much at every level at the college. I worked at community college. I worked in the private state university level as well, Division 1, Division 2. So I've worked in various atmospheres, and there's a lot of similarities, and there's a lot of truth to what that athletic director said about how needed the students are. And I, kind of thought from my experience refereeing, like, man, could it be tied to a lot of what I'm seeing as a referee from this vantage point now as a referee, um, of why some students could possibly be needy? Kind of ask myself, that. So I can see how this can correlate, right? Like I said, with what I'm seeing in the current environment in youth sports, right, and how it can and has had some effects on our current young athletes, with their behavior and their needs. As a person who grew up playing organized sports myself, more specifically football, track, and basketball as a youth myself, and having the blessing of furthering my athletic career, my own personal athletic career, playing football in college and track, and also having opportunity to play some pro football. But I participated in track and field from junior high school all the way through college, my 4 years in college. So while I was in college, I did football and track as well. And I played football and ran track from seventh grade all the way through my college years playing um, football and track growing up. Um, and I was able to get scholarship money with football and track to help me pay for my education. So having the blessing of furthering my career, being able to do that, my athletic career to do that, and additionally having um, raised two sons that played youth and high school football and baseball at a high level, and having my oldest son going through the recruiting process in football. that was blessed to receive a Power Five scholarship as a quarterback. Um, so I believe with what I just shared, with my own personal experience myself and having two sons, I believe I can speak on the subject, right? The subject of youth and high school and college sports that includes recruiting from an expert perspective. And I can also speak about professional sports as somebody who did have the blessing of having an opportunity. I was an undrafted free agent, signed a free agent contract. I was in training camp, went through all that experience as a young man growing up at 22, 23 years old, playing in different leagues, NFL, pro spring league, arena football. So I had the blessing of, being a pro athlete. Not a very long career, but long enough. Being in the locker room and being at practice and dealing with all that stuff and having all the other things that go along with playing in the NFL. I had that experience while I was in my short time in the NFL. So I believe I can speak from an expert perspective, you know, and I hope um, that you feel I can too, as I've shared about my own experience, my as a player, participant, as well as, like I said, having two sons, right? And I'm a diehard sports fan, right? And I just completed, like I said, my first season as a youth and high school referee in football, and getting ready to start doing it in for basketball. And it's concerning to me to see how many parents, right, youth coaches as well, can allow and get themselves so worked up about a youth sport game, right? Um, it is to the point sometimes, guys, that you would think, um, that it's them out there playing, right? That it's them as a parent or a coach out there playing, how they can get themselves so worked up, right? Um, and it just, like I said, it concerns me. It seems to be more important to the parents and coaches than the youth at the time, than the youth that's playing the game, right? And another thing is like, is it that serious at that level right now, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's not important and it doesn't have any seriousness about it, but is it that serious? Like, it's when I tell you some of the things I've heard after doing a youth game at any age level, where parents are just livid that their child lost the game, right? They're totally different when they win, but boy, let them lose a game, right? I'll get more into that. Um, but like I said, as if it is that serious at that level, it is not that serious because many of those youth will not continue to want to even play football or any sport for that matter, right? You know, and people don't realize that, there are some kids that at some point they're not going to even want to play a sport or a specific sport, or they may just give up playing sports altogether, just because of their experience of seeing how things happen or carry on, right? So, but like I said, a lot of that of why they won't want to continue playing sports, a lot of that will be due, right, to what the youth athlete experience, right, of how their parents or coaches conducted themselves, right, when the athlete was younger, right? They don't even want to have anything to do with it anymore because they're tired of seeing, angry parents and coaches, right? And so a lot of that will kill a young person's desire to even want to continue playing sometimes, right? No matter how good they are or not, okay? Or they could end up at a high school that has a coach that is not fun or exciting to play for, right? When they come in as a freshman, right? They could lose their desire. I've had many conversations with friends, that I've met here, places that I've lived and been involved in sports, and I'll see a guy that's talented when I'm playing a pickup game of basketball or football or whatever it may be. And I'm like, man, did you play ball? Like, and then when you hear, like, that they didn't or why they didn't, it can always sometimes go back to a coach, right? That they didn't care to play for, and that's real. And I know a lot of us probably can attest to that. Some of you all who are listening, whether you're listening live or you listen to the recording, some of you all can attest to, hey, yeah, I stopped playing. That's why I'm letting my kids play because, I didn't, take the opportunity to play because I had a coach, whether it was in youth or high school, that they just didn't desire to play for because they were some type of way. The coach was, maybe more negative, or, everybody's going to, yell and do all those different things. We know that. But, there are some of those coaches that can kill a person's passion, an athlete's passion, male or female. Of, I've talked to male athletes, female athletes. I remember having a conversation with a young lady I met that was playing basketball at USC. Um, Tall, tell she could ball, and she shared about why she didn't finish playing college basketball back in the day, because of different things going on, and it's so, like I said, many of us can attest to that. That many of these kids will not want to be involved or around that type of atmosphere, and will forego playing sports. Again, right? Um, Especially a sport that they were very good at. They may just altogether just want to be done with it, right? And that is very disheartening to me when I see or hear about these types of situations. This happens more than you know, right? More than some of you all know. This happens a lot. You know, Now there will be some that will stick it out, right? There will be some that will stick it out, right? But not become the successful athlete they had high potential to be, right? Some of them may not be able to, be that stud athlete they could have been, right? Because they're dealing with a lot of stuff. Just like I shared, what the athletic director of athletic life on campus that I had to have had a good conversation with about how needed it some of our, or not our, but her athletes were at her university, and sharing about how when she talks to some of her other colleagues that she knows they have some of the same situations. Kids, like to hang around or need this or that done because, for whatever reason, um, they feel like, hey, we're just another parent to a lot of these kids, on even though whether they're on scholarship or not, but they're athletes, and some of them are high performing athletes. It doesn't matter, um, but I can attest as somebody who's like I said, a college administrator for 25 plus years, that that is the case, right? But as I said, parents and coaches alike, they must stop making it about themselves, right? And try to they got to stop it making it about themselves and try to convince themselves that it's not. Because they try to convince themselves, oh no, it's not about me. Because I know I had to work hard. You know, as a dad of athletes, being a former athlete, it ain't easy. So I can attest and tell you that as a parent, it ain't easy, right? But I wasn't one of those parents always getting irate, or yelling and cussing out refs, or telling the ref that they were garbage, whether I felt like they were or not. You no Nobody can ever tell you right now, come and tell you right now on this podcast, if they came on here as a show, if they did, they wouldn't be telling you the truth because they've never seen me act crazy or go off on a referee. And there are times where I felt like, when it was serious, at the high school level and the college level, where hey, times I would have loved to gone off, but still, that was not how I conducted myself. And the reason why I didn't was because I was thinking about my kids. I was thinking about what they were going to be thinking. That's why I didn't do certain things. That was the main reason why, as a parent of having kids who played sports and participated in youth sports, why I didn't do certain things, because I didn't want my kids to experience me being some sort of outrage, out of control parent of youth sports, right? But like I said, parents and coaches alike must stop making it about themselves and stop trying to convince themselves that, you know, oh, it's not about me. Oh, it is about you when you act a certain way, right? And I can tell you right now, I do not ever remember a time, okay, when my father or youth league coaches were out of control or out of line or over the top every weekend during my youth sport years. I cannot remember or point out, and I can ask my brother and other guys that I played with. I'm not saying things didn't happen sometimes Oh yeah, of course, we're all human. There were some things that happened sometimes, but it wasn't a every weekend thing like I've dealt with as a referee this year. Every weekend, every team that has lost, right? And I've done quite a few youth sports games. Every weekend, there is some parent pulling off saying some stuff with the kids in the car or walking to the car, or you're walking from the field past the stands. You got to have police, sheriff, you know, and when you have to have stuff like that on a regular basis, that means things are out of control, right? But I can never ever remember a time. My dad wasn't one, you know, to be that way, right? My father coached us, and my mom attended often and volunteered with different things, right? But never did they act out of line or blamed or yelled at coaches or the referees, no matter what the outcome of a game was, right? I never heard or saw my parents or teammates' parents get irate, right? Um, we had our share of things happening, as I said, but not on a regular weekend occurrence, right? Every weekend occurrence that I can remember witnessing um, or anything like that. But I can remember times when my sons played um, youth sports. Yeah, you had some of that, but not to the degree that I see today. But yeah, we did have some stuff. With it was definitely a difference from when my kids played youth sports, from what they saw growing up, with other parents and things of that nature. Um, I definitely can say that my kids did see some things, but it wasn't me. And I can point things out on the ride home and say, yeah, that parent, is a little bit out of control, whatnot, um, and it's uncalled for, you know, and like today, in today's atmosphere, right, environment, parents are blaming everyone under the sun except their own. It's everybody else's fault why their kids lost their youth football game, right? It's always the coach was bad or the refs were terrible, is what I hear from parents all the time as a referee this year from teams that lost, right? Now, what I don't hear from parents, right? Or maybe our team wasn't ready, or this team was a much better team than ours, or maybe my child needs to play better or not play that, or they didn't play that well, right? Or our kids weren't focused today, right? I don't hear things like that from parents when they lose. It's always everybody else's fault. It's never their child, fault, or they didn't play well, right? That's how over the top that these some parents can be, or the coaches on the sideline, right? When I'm a line judge, right, and not an umpire on the field, but when I'm a line judge and I'm right there on the sideline, right, coaches are complaining about the refs or the other team getting more favorable calls, right, but not that their players were at fault, or just not making plays more than the other team, right? That's what I don't hear, or I don't hear maybe you know um, you just didn't do a good job coaching today, right? And I hear a lot of it. I trust me, I can attest where there's some guys out there that aren't good coaches. They're just yellers and screamers, and there's too many people yelling, at kids one at a time, and kids can't make out who's saying what or whatever. It's just, unnecessary. So I don't hear coaches admitting that, hey, I've had a few. I'm not gonna say didn't have any, but for the most part, I don't hear coaches saying I didn't do a good job coaching today, right? Um, or that they could have coached their team up better, right, to perform better or to be better prepared. Those are some things I don't hear from the coaches. It's the ref's fault, or you let that coach be on the field when he shouldn't be on the field. Now I'm on the field and you're getting on me about stuff. It's just constant back and forth. Nobody wants to accept responsibility, and so and I said that as I shared before at the start of this podcast, where I met and had the opportunity to talk to a director um, over college athletics and student life, student athlete life. Um, and they made a statement saying how needed their students are. And talking to other colleagues, I mean, around I don't care, SEC, ACC, talking to other colleagues when we go to conferences and things like that for financial aid, and we're dealing with different things. We have conferences and workshops or sessions that I have attended, and I get to talk to people. And I will, because I want to know, right? Because that's how involved I am with sports. I want to know. And the one thing that they shared with me was how needy their students are. So that's why I'm talking about how some of these needy students at the college level could be directly, probably correlated to what some of these athletes saw growing up doing youth sport, right? Why some of them may um, have some of the issues that they have, and I'll talk more about that. But like I said, that's what this conversation is about, and that's why I'm saying some of the things that I'm saying. So, if the focus was there, or if the focus was there on what I'm not hearing from parents and coaches, right? The things that I mentioned where I said I'm not hearing from parents and coaches, if the focus were on those things, right, of what I'm not hearing from parents and coaches, accepting, and not blaming, accepting some fault and not always blaming everyone else, we would serve our youth, athletes better, right? Or youth in general, but definitely our youth athletes better. And they would need less parenting at the college level by administration to be sure that they can perform better, right? That's why I think some of these college kids are needing to have some additional parenting, even at the college level, right? And they may also become better college prospects, right, while they're in high school for college sports scholarships, because the young athletes conduct uh, conduct would be better, I should say, right? If we did those things that I said that I don't hear parents and coaches say, where they accept, hey, we could have done better, or we could have coached them up better, right? Or not always blaming on the referees. Referees gonna make mistakes; they're human, right? I mean, when I've heard some of the things that I've heard about, saying stuff about referees or complaints about coaches, and how people don't want to accept any responsibility of that. Hey, it could have just been your athlete. Maybe it's just not developed, to that level compared to some other kid, and then maybe that's why they didn't do well. There's a lot of things with confidence level that I see with some kids. I mean, I'm out there on the field sometimes, and I can tell there's some kids that don't even want to be out there for some of these youth sports, right? It's almost like, you know, I think you should make them do something, but make them do a sport that they enjoy doing, not just a sport that you want them to do, because maybe you didn't play that sport or didn't get a chance to go far, and you want your kid. There's nothing wrong with that, but if they're not interested, they don't seem to be focused at that moment. Maybe you need to wait till they get a little older and develop, where they do have that interest and want to play it on their own, and not you making them do it, but find a sport that they're very interested in, but also just being sure as a parent how you conduct yourself, right? Um, and so, like I said, if we can get a grasp on that at the youth sport level, these kids when they get to college may not be so needy and need surrogate parents from athletic, staff, administration, right? So these types of behaviors that are always on 100 from many coaches and parents, right? Um, that I see all the time can be a reason, like I said, for some of the youth behavior issues, right? That we see sometimes, right? Or that we sometimes witness, kids acting out or doing certain things. We wonder, like, man, why was that kid doing that? Man, I guarantee you can take it back to when they were youth, where something happened, right? Possibly something traumatic happened. Potentially kids aren't just doing things, right? Um, just to be doing things. Kids soak up what they see adults do, right? Where their influence is coming from, right? I've had experience this season as a referee from our youth athletes that I have never witnessed before, right? Because like I said, I was new to refereeing. Um, the only thing I can connect this to is the kids are only acting like they're out of control parents or coaches, right? They absolutely see or witness every Saturday. And trust me, I'm telling you, you all might think I'm over exaggerating. I am not over exaggerating, right? As a youth myself, we would never talk back or complain to a referee when I was growing up, right? The few times that it may have happened that I witnessed it as a kid, and it was few times, right? You would be dealt with real quickly, right? By a coach or even a parent. You would either be taken out of that game, right? If that ref ever said, hey, kids speaking out of turn or anything like that, or saying, you know, inappropriate words or whatever the case may be. I'm telling you, when I grew up, you never talk back to a ref. If you got caught or the coach knew you said something to a referee inappropriately or complaining or said anything, man, you would get dealt with properly. You would get pulled out of a game, sat down. That wasn't tolerated. And I'm telling you, not all these teams. There were some very well disciplined teams, well coached teams, well prepared teams in youth sports this year. So I saw both. I just didn't see enough of well coached and well prepared teams. Right, I didn't see enough of that, but I did see some well prepared and well coached youth teams. Right, and it was very refreshing to be able to see some well coached or well prepared youth teams. And I did have some coaches where they didn't complain much about, and a lot of stuff. Right, that was very few and far between. I had more people. We had more people in my experience this year as a referee that complained more than anything. I saw some kids who showed some very good sportsmanship, helping helping the opposing player up, from a play. Saw a lot of good things like that. And it was definitely refreshing and even surprising at sometimes. Um, with certain teams that I had experience with, maybe in a previous game, and then this next game, it was a difference because we're out there a lot of times as referees trying to keep order, right? So we're out here trying to, manage a game, but also trying to keep order with kids, getting in each other's faces and all those different things of that nature. And then when you see a coach acting a certain way, and you see a team acting a certain way, you can you know why, right? Or you see some parents saying, I've heard some parents say some things like hurt another kid because they thought somebody was trying to hurt their kid. Um, just some out of control stuff like that. But like I said, growing up, I never saw my father or parents act a certain way. Not just mine, but even some of my other teammates that I grew up. I didn't see parents, I'm not saying like we were perfect because trust me, we weren't perfect. But there were just some things we didn't do when I grew up playing youth sports. You just didn't see it, right? And like I said, for those young male and female athletes who continue to play, you know, even after having this kind of experience with seeing this stuff in youth sports, and you'll get some that will continue to play no matter what. And that's because they really have a strong love for the game. They really do, right? And they'll put up with poor behavior from adults, right? And will hopefully make it, to college. However, they may get to college and need additional parenting, like what this director of athletic life was sharing with me, right? Um, so they may get, like I said, however, they may get to college and need additional parenting from college athletic staff, as I mentioned earlier, because of the trauma they experienced as a youth in youth sports. And that is real, folks. This is real. Whether you disagree with me or not, agree with me, disagree, however you see it, right? I see it and have dealt with it, at the college level with student athletes. I've had many young men and young women that I helped with their financial aid as a college administrator that were athletes that, I was like a parent that they would come see me on a regular basis for advice or an opinion or help them make some decisions about some things or if I see or if I'm walking around campus from a meeting here and there and I might run into some of them, I always would holler at them and talk with them and let them know, hey man, coming to see you, young lady coming to see y'all play. I'm missing a game tonight, the start of a college basketball season for my college university. But I'll catch it next time because I want to be on this podcast. But I'm just sharing like what my first year experience as a referee was with youth sports and what I'm seeing. And from this comment that I heard not too long ago from a college administrator or director of college athletics and student athlete life on their campus, right? But like I said, you're going to have some athletes that no matter what, because they love the game, they really have a strong love for the game. No matter what they saw, they're very good. They're very good athletes, and they will continue to play and pursue it no matter what. Right? They know how to maybe compartmentalize some things. Right? They may do a good job of separating things and dealing with things, or so it looks like on the surface anyway. With some, not all. Um, and but like I said, some of them will have a strong love for the game and they're going to pursue it no matter what, right? But I know as a college administrator, we do feel like we're parents, right? And and as like I said, I got 25 years working in financial aid, um, and I've had a lot of connections with student athletes. Now I'm very glad and thankful to be able to do that, right? I am, right? But it can and should not be something needed that I need to do or any other college administrator needs to do, um, because of the experience, because of what these athletes experience, right? And what they're seeing, what I'm seeing in youth sports today, right? I know that's probably why when they get to college that you're like a surrogate parent to some of these athletes. And like I said, I'm glad to do it because I want them to succeed and do well and perform at a high level and take it as far as they can take it. I'm all about that, right? So my thing is, let's do our best, okay? Let's do our best, to work together now and do what is best for our kids today. So in the future, they don't need to have surrogate parenting by the college and university athletic staff, right? Let's send them to college healthy, mentally, right? Physically. Let's send them to college healthy to perform at a high level and have great success. Heck, let's send them from youth sports healthy to high school sports healthy so that they can perform at a high level. I definitely feel like the reason why we have some of these struggles is because of some parents can be out of control. I know you want was your kids to have a certain experience in youth sports, and I'm down with you on that. I'm wholeheartedly with you on that. But like I said, if you want them to have a great experience, you have to think about how you, as a parent of a youth athlete, how you're conducting yourself, right? It's very important that you are mindful of that and what your young athlete, male or female, is seeing from mom or dad and how they conduct themselves. Where it's never about the youth athlete may not have been ready or prepared or developed enough yet at their age. Because we know in youth sports, and I've seen it in the Pop Warner League, they don't go by weight or size, they go by age, your birthday. And so I've seen some huge kids at 12 years old, big kids, with some tiny kids out on that football field. And I've seen some kids with some looks in their faces, like, what in the heck am I here doing on the offensive line, as tiny as I am, and I got a 6'2" kid at 10 years old, 6 feet kid at 12 years old, and there's another kid um, that you just got to put him somewhere, and you put him on the offensive line, and he has this huge um, kid that he has to block. And I've seen some kids, hey, man up and do their best, right? And they never will win that battle because of size, right? But that's the Pop Warner League. They don't go by size, like the league I grew up in. It was by birthday with it was by birthday and it was also by weight. So if you were a kid that were that was big for your age, you would have gotten moved up. Now they would look at moving you up because you probably wouldn't make weight for your age group. So, and I've seen kids when I grew up that missed playing a lot of games because every weekend they were working on trying to lose weight to make weight, right? In the youth league that I played in and that my kids played in, the same youth league that I played in back home in Florida. And like I said, I've coached over 12 years in Florida, coaching high school football, right? Since I've been in North Carolina the past 3 years, I haven't coached high school um, sports, but I'm refereeing and everything. So I'm around and I see it, and I'm working with kids to help them with their recruiting right now. Several kids in our area, so and helping them with their recruiting because I know they're not getting the help that they should be receiving. And so I'm all about that, and so that's why I'm still deep in it. I'm very involved in it. I know what I'm talking about because I I played at every level. Have a son that played at every level, still playing right now, um, still involved in pro sports. Um, so I'm just telling you I know what I'm talking about, and I've helped quite a few kids get to college and fulfill their dream of getting a scholarship to play sports and pay for their education and help that relief of that parent not having to worry about paying for their child's education because why they committed themselves to helping develop their young athlete and trusting those who know to help develop their young athlete to succeed and be able to get that scholarship. Um, but I just know my experience this year as a referee was very eye opening, very concerning, um, very hopeful as well, but more concerning than hopeful. And I just hope to be a difference maker as I'm involved as much as I am or can be in youth sports, in college sports, and pro, all of that. I want to give my expertise and my wisdom and knowledge and pass it on and help as many as I can. And like I said, I hope you guys continue to follow and subscribe to Coach Smith. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Love the Game 24_7, and Coach Smith 27, and Love the Game 27 on IG. If you need some assistance, you got any questions, you can email me at love the 24/7 game at gmail.com. That runs all together. There's no separation. Love the 247 game at gmail.com. um, I'm happy to do it and excited to do it, and that's what drives me and moves me. Um, Definitely, because I'm all about helping our youth and our young people fulfill their dream of whatever sport it is that they want to play and help them with their recruiting one on one, right? And so this is the first episode of recruiting one on one series that I'm starting on this podcast. Like I said, I'll probably have some interviews that I'll throw in here as well. I have a few little. There are times I'll be live, and there are times I'll just put a video out there that I recorded um, to give some information and the steps about recruiting as it pertains to how you should how your email should look. I have templates, so if you don't want to have to um, figure out how to devise that email or that letter that you're going to send to a coach or coaches, because it should be to multiple coaches, even if it's at the same uh, place that you're looking at trying to pursue scholarships, at. So that'll be my next thing. I'll be giving some tips. Yeah, I may not be do that live. I'll probably do a recording. I'm looking at working on that now. That I'm going to put out hopefully this weekend on some tips, a few tips about um, how to get notice more from college coaches to help increase your recruiting exposure in your sport, no matter what sport it is. But yeah, so I just want to take the time tonight and share that little bit, like I said, about my experience this year refereeing for the first time and just seeing the concerns that I had with some parents, and I hope this helps some parent help you look at yourself. If you're one of them parents, look here, hey, you're human, you're gonna make mistakes. But I know there's a scripture as a person that's a believer in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I know there's some scripture that I read that tells me there's much wisdom in with getting much counsel, right? Getting much counsel, and when it says much counsel, it means getting counsel from more than one person or one individual. And you should get counsel from people who've experienced it, been there and done that, and got a T-shirt about it, right? Like myself, and anybody else that you can find. And like I said, I learned to do that myself when it came to my kids, right? When it came to my boys with baseball, I took them to places where they could hone their skills in baseball because dad couldn't tell them when it came to baseball. I could only tell them so much. And I'm not going to even try to attempt to tell them some things to do. I can definitely tell them about how to work out and do some different things of that nature and, watch the ball, of course. But it's always good to get somebody who's been there and done that and got a T-shirt in that in a sport your kid is pursuing if you don't have a lot of experience in it. I grew up playing baseball, but not too much organized baseball. I played more organized football, basketball, and track and field than I did anything else. Um, so as I said before, I found people with baseball because my kids did baseball and they did football. And so when it came to my son playing quarterback, I had Coach John Kaleo, who was a quarterback guru in our area, who played at University of Maryland, who worked with many top college quarterbacks. Um, Oladokin, who's a backup. I think he's still with the Kansas City Chiefs. Him and my son used to work out back in Tampa Bay area, Tampa, Florida, with Coach Kaleo. He trained many kids, and he trained my son, like I said, with Oladokin, who's with the Kansas City Chiefs as a backup quarterback. Him and my son on a regular basis with many other kids got training, and that's what you do as a parent, right? Where my lack of being able to coach my son as a quarterback where I couldn't tell him much anymore myself. I took him around Coach Davis at CCC, and I put him with Coach Kaleo that was in the area working with multiple quarterbacks, for a lot of kids, working with NFL quarterbacks, running camps for the NFL at quarterback. Camps that people didn't even realize that were going on. These little different little camps that the NFL would do. Coach Kaleo was pretty much one of the guys who organized it, and he would work out, set these little camps up for private workouts and sessions, and give that information to NFL teams because of his connection and his relationship. And so he was a quarterback guru. And so that's what you do as a parent. You don't try to, do something um, that you don't know about. And like I said, when it comes to youth sports, parents, you got to be much more aware about how and what you're saying. Right? I can't, don't even want to repeat some of the stuff that I've heard over the weekends that I finished refereeing games. And I'm not saying that some of that stuff didn't happen. When we did hear about stuff like that happening, it was like a shock. It ain't a shock to people anymore. It's like a normal thing. But when we heard stuff like that happening, it was a major shock. Like, what? Oh man, that's crazy. Because it was. Because it's not that serious, right? You don't want your kid to lose that love or passion that they have for a sport because you're out there, you know, acting a certain way that's not good, that's not positive for your kid to see as well as any other kid, or any adult, right? So you're giving yourself a bad name. So when you get ready to send your kid to the high school level, oh, people talk, right? People know referees played and grew up in the areas and know coaches that are coaching, and everybody talks and sees each other and find out, oh man, you got that kid over there at your program. Oh man, I hope their parents have calmed down. Trust me. Those conversations have come. You're like, man, I hope that parent calmed down because when they were in the youth sports, man, they were way over the top, man, with their kid, man. Their kid couldn't do no wrong. You know, that stuff gets spread around, and you don't want to have a reputation of being a parent that nobody wants to deal with, right? And then your kids acting a certain way because all they saw doing youth sports were the coaches being, you know, over the top as well as a parent being over the top. You know, and some of you all may not want to hear it, but I'm telling you, it has an effect, right? And it has an effect even when they get to the college. As the person I spoke to, the director of athletics over athletic um, student athlete life on college campuses, about how they feel like the athletes can be so very needy, and it wasn't a specific sport; it was all sports, no matter male or female, white, black, whatever. It didn't matter. That that wasn't all all students, right? And it's not, it's not every student, but it's a good number of students being very needy, right? Um, Now, granted, it's good that they, come to the office and want to talk and want to they feel comfortable having somebody that they can trust and talk to. That's great because we need to have that at the college um, administration level, for whether it's just for the student or for the student athlete. It needs to be there. But I know that it probably is some correlation for what some of these kids saw in youth sports growing up on why they are so needy. And when they get somewhere where it's not crazy stuff going on, or just over the top complaining or this and that going on, man, it's peaceful to them, and it's like, oh man, a breath of fresh air to them. It's new, right? For some, for quite a few, it's new. For some, it's not, but for quite a few, it's new. And like I said, I can't even repeat some of the stuff that I hear every weekend, right? There's some positive things I can say, absolutely every weekend that I can share, right? But some of the negative stuff way outweighs some of the positive stuff that I hear. People pulling off in their cars or trucks saying stuff, you know, man, it's just, you know, concerning. So I just want to take time to share that tonight, starting out this podcast on recruiting 101, because that's the first thing that we have to get. We have to get this stuff under control to where we have healthy kids mentally, you know, physically, spiritually, whatever the case, emotionally. We got to have healthy kids, healthy young athletes so that they can perform at a high level. Because I'm telling you right now, there are scholarships available for those who are willing to put in the work. It may not always be the school you want to go to, or it may not be the level you want to play, but there are scholarships available if you are the ones that can survive and have that strong love for the game, whatever sport it is that you play. If you're willing to commit yourself and put in the work and dedicate yourself, there are scholarships out there. Okay. Don't let this stuff, this narrative about the transfer portal and NIL, there's some truth to some of that, but there's some over exaggerating with some of that stuff as well. So there are a lot of kids who have had to go play at a lower level and they developed themselves and got bigger, stronger, and faster and learned the game and whatever sport it is that they play. They got a better and clearer understanding and putting in much more effort. Um, and maybe their skill level has shot up because of the work that they put in and the time they put in to get better and to get bigger and stronger and faster and watching video of themselves in the game because of that love that they have, and they've been able to transfer to a higher level of competitiveness in the NCAA from NAIA to Division One or whatever the case may be, Division Two to Division One or Division Two to FCS or FCS to FBS. There are scholarships out there for those athletes who are committed. Do not let anybody fool you. But as I would tell you, there are some people who are not going to put that work in, right? And not willing to stick it out. Okay. And that opens the doors up for those who are willing, right? Um, my whole thing is, man, do what you got to do to help pay for your education so you come out debt free, right? That's my story about it. Get your education, at least get that out of it, right? If anything else, okay. Say you got your degree, because I'm telling when people hire you for a job, one of the first things they look at is, man, if you play sports and you got a degree, man, you are somebody that we want to hire. Not just, even for the regular student. It's not easy to get a 4-year degree, even if you're not an athlete. It's not easy. It takes some people some time, some years. But man, if you can finish in 4 or 5 years, I know there's a few that finish in 3 years. But man, if you're one of them students that can get your degree in 4 or 5 years, whether you're a student or a student athlete, man, you are valuable as an employee because they know it took some dedication and commitment for you to finish that degree, especially when you're an athlete because your schedule is a lot more busier than the regular student when you're an athlete. Your time is very demanding and scheduled, and they know that, right? People who hire and see that resume, and you want to put on your resume that you played sports, right? If you're a male or female, when you decide that you're hanging up, right? Hanging up the cleats or hanging up the shoes or whatever it is that you play, right? You're hanging up the hockey stick or the baseball bat, and when you have that application and your resume filled out, you need to put on there that you participated in college sports. And when they see that you have a degree and you did that, oh man, you open the door for so much opportunity to be hired for a job because they know you're going to be committed because you've been and that you know how to work with teams, right? So that's it for tonight from Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7. So I thank you if you listen to this live. Like I said, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Love the Game 24_7. I appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter as well, um, ODR365NC for those who are interested in offense, defense. And you can also follow me on my Twitter at Love the Game 27 on Twitter. And so I'm out there doing all I can to help some young athletes, male and female young athletes, get their education. But like I said, there are scholarships out there if you want it. You got to go get it, right? So let's go get it. All right. Peace, y'all. Have a good evening. We'll do it again. do it again.